It's time now for a look at what's been making the headlines here in A Week in France. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy was back in court on Wednesday as he continues his appeal against his conviction for involvement in an election campaign financing conspiracy tied to Libya. Sarkozy went on the offensive, dismissing evidence from his former key aide as his lawyers launched a vigorous counterattack. They produced a flood of figures aiming to show that of the 6 million euros the Libyans had sent, half had never even been meant to fund his 2007 presidential election campaign, and it ended up back in Libyan hands. The trial is expected to last until June 3rd. On Thursday, President Emmanuel Macron attended the final phase of the Orion 26 military exercises. The drills represent an intense combat simulation involving thousands of troops from France and several other European nations. The drills began back in February and are the latest sign that France and Europe are prioritizing military readiness, with Russia continuing its wide-scale invasion of Ukraine. Monty Francis has the story.
Cannon and artillery fire rings out in the usually quiet countryside of northeastern France. Military helicopters fly overhead and tanks patrol the streets. All of it meant to simulate an invasion by an enemy, and the French president himself, riding in an armed vehicle, was there to encourage those taking part.
I want to tell you how proud I am, along with the Minister for the Armed Forces, to be at your side for the conclusion of the Orion exercises, which is clearly proving to be a success and a clear signal both to our allies and adversaries.
The exercises involved more than 12,000 troops from France and 6 other allied nations, including Belgium, Italy, Spain, Greece, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. The last phase of the drills, reclaiming territory from a fictional enemy.
And these Orion exercises made it possible to test the robustness of many of these approaches. It also allowed us to confirm both what had been conceived and intended, and I thank you for that with regard to command, as well as the ability of the Europeans to act together.
France has vastly increased its military spending from 32 billion euros in 2017 to more than 57 billion this year. Citing the war in Ukraine, Macron said France had also massively increased its arsenal of military drones. With Donald Trump threatening to pull out of NATO, other European nations have also increased their spending on defense. President Macron said the drills, which concluded on Thursday, were a demonstration that France is a power recognized by its allies and feared by its enemies.
French oil and gas giant TotalEnergies announced on Wednesday that its net profit had risen by 51% in the last quarter of 2026. The news has been drawing criticism from consumers hit by rising prices at the pump and calls for action from the French government. Juliette Brown explains.
Activists gathered near a TotalEnergies petrol station in Paris on Wednesday to protest what they consider are obscene super profits reaped by the energy giant. The French oil and gas company announced its net profit had risen by more than 50% in the first quarter of 2026, hitting $5.8 billion, boosted by higher oil prices linked to the war in the Middle East.
While there are people losing their lives in the conflict in Iran, while there are millions of French people struggling, unable to make ends meet, because energy bills are soaring and food prices are breaking all records, TotalEnergies is lining its pockets with complete impunity and with the complicity of the French government.
The French government says it's considering new measures to tackle rising fuel prices, from new taxes to further price caps.
TotalEnergies needs to position itself, one way or another, on a method of redistribution, and potentially in the most effective way possible, the fastest way, in its commercial policy.
The French Socialist Party is calling for a tax on windfall profits, while the far right says Total is a business, not a charity, and has no reason to give money away. The energy giant pointed out that it has put a ceiling on fuel prices at French stations. But campaigners say that with consumers struggling and profits soaring, that's just not enough.
Women are increasingly being arrested and tried for drug trafficking here in France. This trend is linked to networks recruiting more and more women to cater to their female clientele. Our colleagues at France 2 investigated women in the drug trade to learn how they got involved and what roles they serve.
On March 14th in Marseille, 9 women at the heart of the DZ Mafia were arrested. Women increasingly make up France's drug trafficking networks. Our colleagues at France 2 managed to meet with some of them, from low-level operatives to ringleaders. For the first time, these young women agreed to tell their stories. Marie, 23, was recruited online. Unemployed and a single parent to a newborn, she turned to drug trafficking.
I was in a very precarious situation. I did it to be able to get a pack of diapers, to have enough food in my fridge. I contacted the person on Snapchat. I told them that I had a secure residence, that I was motivated. 15 minutes later, he asked to come straight to my place. He asked me a lot of questions. It was like an interrogation. The next day, they brought 40 kilos of cannabis over.
For 1,000 euros a month, Marie was responsible for inventory and deliveries. She was arrested a few weeks later and is now awaiting trial while fighting to regain custody of her child.
There are consequences at every level, in every aspect. I don't see my son every day, unlike typical mums who drop their kid off at school.
According to a criminal defense attorney, women are preyed upon by drug traffickers who see an opportunity to capture the market of female drug users.
There are real networks who target female customers who don't want to be around men when they're using drugs, especially since they might be a little intoxicated and don't necessarily want to bring a man home, as most of the time the product is delivered right to their doorstep. So, female drug trafficking networks were developed.
To carve out their place in the turf war, some women didn't hesitate to join the most dangerous criminal organizations. Leah, 25, is one of them. After 2 prison stints, she still manages around 20 women who deliver drugs to people's homes. Leah started out selling cannabis, but quickly convinced a drug dealer to join her in creating a female-only network.
At first, he didn't want to. He had some bias, but in the end, he saw there was a change. I was more trustworthy than a man. He himself, to this day, says he prefers to work with women. Men are more likely to steal, might as well stick with the rules.
Leah claims to earn up to 40,000 euros a month. In exchange, she takes all the risks. When her drug stash was stolen, she and her dealers had to answer to the suppliers.
They held us captive for 3 days. We arrived at a villa covered with tarps. There were machine guns everywhere. That was a threat. There are people with acid burns, nails in their legs, basically. They were saying that if there isn't enough money coming in right now, you'll be next.
According to the police, today, women are gaining ground in drug trafficking primarily through social media.
In the case of the Uberization of drug trafficking, women have become more involved in preparing orders, but also in delivery. They have continued these types of operations, but eventually move on to more dangerous missions.
Over the past 2 years in France, the number of women tried in drug trafficking cases has tripled.
It's the world's largest sailing ship, and it's about to disembark from Saint-Nazaire, the town in western France where it was built. The giant 3-masted luxury vessel can accommodate 130 passengers willing to pay up to 200,000 euros for an exclusive week-long cruise. Emerald Maxwell takes a look behind the scenes of this floating palace.
It's about to set sail, leaving a touch of nostalgia in its wake. At 220 meters long and weighing 15,000 tons, this cruise liner is the largest sailing ship ever built. On board, it aims to capture the chic spirit of the legendary early 1900s Orient Express train, with luxurious interiors crafted from the finest materials: marble, precious woods, crystal, and works by French artists.
Dans la Throughout our brand's history, we have always drawn on French expertise in our quest to capture the French art of living.
Un art de vivre à la française.
A floating palace for no more than 130 people across some 50 suites. Restaurants run by a Michelin-starred chef priced between 5,000 and 120,000 euros a night. The aim, to introduce a clientele accustomed to luxury to cruises.
The idea is very simple, to take our regular customers on a cruise for the first time in their lives. Some had never thought of it and some didn't want to do it at first. But why not? It's the most beautiful floating hotel in the world.
It's also a technological feat. The ship is the first cruise vessel to use 3 sails, each measuring 1,500 meters square, which can be operated automatically. A yacht that combines sail propulsion and liquefied natural gas.
This significantly reduces fuel consumption, and there's no doubt that we'll see less polluting cruise ships in the years to come. Progress has already been made, but we need to go even further.
The ship will set sail from Saint-Nazaire in western France on Saturday for its maiden voyage, heading for the Mediterranean before cruising to the Caribbean this winter.